Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into 3 of the most cunning and, frankly, dangerous pathogens you'll ever encounter in veterinary microbiology. We're talking about Pseudomonas aeruginosa, Burkholderia Mallei, and Burkholderia Pseudomallei. We're going to break down the exact microscopic mechanisms these bacteria use to cause disease. But more importantly, we're going to figure out how to definitively tell them apart when you're faced with a real clinical case. Here is our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll cover general characteristics and differentiation, then deep dive into Pseudomonas aeruginosa, followed by Burkholderia Mallei, and then Burkholderia Pseudomallei. We'll wrap it all up with a master diagnostic comparison and 10 rapid-fire, high-yield exam points. So we've got 3 gram-negative bacteria, right? But they have 3 completely different stories. How exactly do we tell them apart? We're looking at a pigment-producing opportunist, the devastating agent of a disease called Glanders, and the stealthy, chronic cause of Melioidosis. As we go through this, I really want you to listen for the specific diagnostic clues, the exceptions to the rules, because that's exactly what defines each of these pathogens. All right, let's establish a baseline. What do they have in common? Well, all 3 are medium-sized gram-negative rods, measuring roughly 0.5 to 1.0 by 1 to 5 micrometers. They're all obligate aerobes, which just means they rely entirely on oxidative carbohydrate metabolism. And for the most part, they are both oxidase and catalase positive. But here's the absolute game changer, your first major divergence. Pseudomonas aeruginosa and Burkholderia Pseudomallei dart around using polar flagella. They are motile. Burkholderia Mallei, on the other hand, is strictly non-motile. If you're running a motility test, this is a massive branching point for your diagnosis. Another incredibly useful way to separate these 3 right on the culture plate is simply by relying on your sense of smell. Seriously, Pseudomonas aeruginosa has a very distinct, fruity, almost grape-like odor. Burkholderia Pseudomallei, conversely, has a very characteristic musty odor. And while both of those will happily grow on standard media like McConkey agar, we'll see in a minute that Burkholderia Mallei is a bit of a diva and has some very specific, demanding requirements. Section 1. Pseudomonas aeruginosa, the pigmented opportunist. This organism is practically everywhere. It thrives in environmental water, in the soil, on plants. You can even find it on the skin, mucous membranes, and in the feces of healthy animals. But what's really fascinating is that this opportunist is literally colorful. It's famous for producing up to 4 diffusible pigments. You've got pyoverdin, which is greenish-yellow, pyorubin, which is red, and pyomelanin, a brownish-black pigment that develops really slowly over a matter of weeks. But the absolute star of the show is number 1, pyocyanin. This blue-green pigment is unique to this organism. If you see a blue-green pyocyanin pigment, you have definitively identified Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Now, because it's an opportunist, it takes advantage of highly specific vulnerabilities across drastically different species. In farmed mink, it triggers a sporadic but totally devastating hemorrhagic pneumonia with up to a 50% mortality rate. In cattle, it causes mastitis, which is actually often linked directly to contaminated water used for udder washing, or even contaminated intramammary tubes. And in sheep, there's this wild condition called fleece rot. Basically, after heavy, prolonged rainfall, water penetrates the fleece and macerates the skin. Pseudomonas aeruginosa colonizes that wet, damaged environment, causing a suppurative dermatitis. And remember that blue-green pyocyanin pigment we just talked about? It actually turns the sheep's wool blue-green. Once it actually finds a vulnerability in a host, the invasion is highly systematic. Step 1, it attaches using fimbria. Step 2, it colonizes and aggressively evades the host's immune system using extracellular slime, outer membrane lipopolysaccharides, and exoenzyme S. Once it's safely evaded detection, it unleashes severe tissue damage using proteases and phospholipase C. And finally, it goes systemic. This systemic dissemination is driven by endotoxin and a highly lethal weapon called exotoxin A. Let's zoom in on the molecular mechanism of exotoxin A for a second, because it is a brilliant, albeit terrifying, piece of biological warfare. It's a bipartite toxin. Once its active component is internalized into the host cell, it completely blocks protein synthesis. How? By catalyzing the ADP ribylation of elongation factor 2. Without protein synthesis, the host cell simply dies. It's a calculated, highly lethal blockade right at the microscopic level. You really need to understand this mechanism because it perfectly explains the severe, rapid tissue necrosis you'll see in clinical cases. Diagnosing this in the lab follows a pretty straightforward workflow. You take your clinical specimen, maybe it's pus, mastitic milk, or a midstream urine catch, and culture it at 37 degrees Celsius. On McConkey agar, it forms these pale, lactose-negative colonies. Your ultimate definitive identification relies on checking off a few boxes. It needs to be oxidized positive, have an unchanged triple sugar iron, agar, emit that distinct grape-like odor, and, of course, display our specific blue-green friend, piocyanin. Okay, shifting gears entirely. Section 2, Glanders, caused by Burkholderia Mallei. Unlike our ubiquitous opportunist from Section 1, Burkholderia Mallei is a highly contagious, major primary pathogen. Its true reservoir is infected equidae, so horses, donkeys, and mules. And listen, it poses a very serious zoonotic threat to humans, which means strict biosafety protocols are an absolute must. The disease itself, glanders, manifests in two main ways. Acute glanders is rapid and septicemic. You'll see fever, mucopurulent nasal discharge, and it often leads to death within just a few weeks. Chronic glanders, however, is much more common and shows up in pulmonary, cutaneous, and nasal forms. The nasal form is particularly striking. Ulcerative nodules develop right on the nasal septum, and when those ulcers eventually heal, they leave behind these highly characteristic star-shaped scars. You also absolutely need to know the specific veterinary term for your exams, FARCI. FARCI is the cutaneous form of glanders. It presents as a severe lymphangitis. What happens is, nodules occur all along the course of the lymphatic vessels in the animal's limbs. Over time, these nodules ulcerate and discharge a thick, yellowish pus. It is an incredibly debilitating, chronic, and disseminated disease. Because of the zoonotic risk we talked about, processing these specimens requires a biohazard cabinet. No exceptions. Now here is your massive diagnostic clue for this one. Burkholderia Mallei strictly requires 1% glycerol in its media for optimal growth. Once it grows, you confirm it is non-motile. From a control standpoint, things are tough. Because treated animals often become subclinical carriers, antibiotic therapy is generally considered inappropriate. In countries where the disease is exotic, it's controlled strictly by a test and slaughter policy, which is then followed by rigorous environmental disinfection with 1.5% formalin or 2.0% iodophor. So imagine you have a potentially exposed hurt. How do you quickly and safely test for this out in the field? Enter the Mallei test. The presence of Burkholderia Mallei actually creates a hypersensitivity reaction in the host. We capitalize on this by injecting a tiny amount, just 0.1 milliliter, of a glycoprotein extract of the bacteria directly into the lower eyelid of the horse. If local swelling occurs, boom, that indicates a positive hypersensitivity reaction. It's a highly efficient, time-tested field method for screening in-contact animals. Let's move to our third and final pathogen. Section 3, Melioidosis, caused by Burkholderia Pseudomallei. You'll find this pathogen hanging out in the tropical and subtropical soils and water of places like Southeast Asia and Australia. Burkholderia Pseudomallei is an opportunistic pathogen heavily linked to host stress and immunosuppression. It uses extracellular products, like an exotoxin, a dermonecrotic protease, and lecithinase, to trigger a chronic, progressive disease. This disease is characterized by disseminated abscesses popping up in the lungs, spleen, liver, and joints. Interestingly enough, because these clinical signs can so perfectly mimic glanders in horses, it's historically been referred to as pseudoglanders. Diagnosing melioidosis also requires strict biohazard precautions. But to contrast it with our other two pathogens, we look for two very specific things during culture. First, that characteristic musty odor we mentioned earlier. Second, when grown on McConkey agar, Burkholderia Pseudomallei actually utilizes lactose. That is a stark difference from the majority of Burkholderia Mallei strains or Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Final confirmation is then achieved through biochemical testing, slide agglutination, or serology. All right, we've broken down all three stories. Let's transition into our final section and synthesize all of this information. We are going to lock in this high-yield data so you're totally prepared for your exams and your future clinical rotations. If you take absolutely nothing else away from this explainer, memorize this breakdown. It's your ultimate diagnostic cheat sheet. If you have a motile organism that smells like grapes and produces a blue-green pigment, you have Pseudomonas aeruginosa. If you have a completely non-motile organism that demands 1% glycerol to grow and originates from an equine reservoir, you are dealing with Burkholderia Mallei. And if it's motile, smells musty, utilizes lactose, and was acquired from tropical soil or water, it's Burkholderia Pseudomallei. It really is that clean and simple when you isolate the variables. Let's run through our 10 non-negotiable high-yield points. Ready? 1. They are all gram-negative obligate aerobes. 2. Most are oxidase positive. 3. Motility is typically via polar flagella. 4. But remember, Burkholderia Mallei is strictly non-motile. 5. Burkholderia Mallei also needs 1% glycerol for growth. 6. Pseudomonas aeruginosa uniquely makes that blue-green piocyanin. 7. Exotoxin A works by blocking host cell protein synthesis. 8. Burkholderia Mallei causes glanders, primarily in equidae. 9. The Mallei test relies on a hypersensitivity reaction. And 10. Burkholderia Pseudomallei is the culprit behind the abscesses of Melioidosis.
Which brings us to our final thought for the day. These 3 pathogens are absolute masters at exploiting weakness, whether that's a sheep with waterlogged fleece or a highly stressed immunosuppressed host. The diseases they cause are severe, and in the case of glanders and melioidosis, they are highly dangerous to you as a practitioner as well. So with this structured knowledge now locked in your mind, how will you use these exact diagnostic clues, the odors, the pigments, the motility, to identify the precise culprit in your next clinical case? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep looking for those crucial diagnostic exceptions.